Okay, so thank you everybody. I'm here to chair the panel about closing the gap, the changing face of skills. My name's Susanna Lawson. I'm CEO and co-founder of OneFile. I set up OneFile 16 years ago from our back bedroom in Burnage, or Bernage as we like to say it if you live in South Manchester. And we're an EdTech platform, primarily for post-16 vocational training such as apprenticeships, traineeships, etc., BTECs. And I'm absolutely delighted today to be asked to host this incredible panel. We've only got 30 minutes and there's 4 people on the panel and we're being joined by Sarah as well remotely. I've been reading a lot this morning about remote first if you're doing a hybrid model. So I'm going to go to the panel and ask them to introduce themselves. So Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yes, hello everyone. Really gutted that I can't be there in person. It's one of those self-isolating things. But yes, hi, I'm Sarah Novotny, Head of Digital, Creative and Tech Sector Support at the GC Business Growth Hub.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
Hi everyone, I'm Richard Fee, I'm founder and chief geek at SalesGeek. Founded the business back in March 2017 and we are on a campaign to change the way in which the world perceives sales. It's a dirty word to many people. We see that as a shame and through our tech-based learning platform we want to change that.
Thank you. Lee?
Hi everyone, I'm Lee Jones. My pronouns are she and her and I'm the digital skills lead for Microsoft here in the UK. I work across the whole of the UK talking around skilling and yeah, it's fab to be here.
Jeff?
Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Stevenson. I'm the regional manager for ADA, the National College for Digital Skills, and I'm setting up our first hub outside of London here in the Northwest. So we are a college with a mission to educate and empower the next generation of diverse digital talent. We have a sixth form down in London, computer science, especially sixth form, and apprenticeships as well in that kind of advanced technical space.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned, I've got an EdTech company in the centre of Manchester and digital skills is an absolute nightmare to recruit for. So Sarah, what have you seen specifically regarding the skills and digital tech industry during the pandemic?
I think probably in summary 3 really big areas, topics that we keep discussing with the leaders that we're supporting. One of them is an ever-increasing shortage of senior kind of level skills that people can just drop into their really accelerating businesses and kind of let loose on the market. The other being that there is a real need for flexibility and innovation in terms of how roles progress and how they fit into business structures. But then also the area around kind of culture and how the skills that are needed and the skills that need to be nurtured kind of fit into that, because within this kind of skill shortage that we're in, job seekers and those that are applying are really quite picky in terms of who they want to kind of give their time to and which culture they want to kind of work in. So that's I'd say probably the main topics, and then obviously the area around how we can help those groups that have been hit the hardest throughout the pandemic, which are the 16 to 24-year-olds and then the over 50s, and how they fit into this big kind of area around skills and the shortages within the tech and digital space.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, if we have time at the end, I'd really like to sort of dig into the diversity sort of topic as well. And Sarah, what kind of support can you offer leaders at the Business Growth Hub?
Our support is really as kind of like individual and tailored as the needs of the leaders that we're working with. In summary, it's 3 different ways of how we support. Either it's the very kind of traditional, probably the thing that people know the most from Business Growth Hub, which is the one-to-one support or kind of the mentorship type of support for the leaders through experts and kind of through people that have been very successful in this field. The other areas is peer-to-peer networks, so this is very important. We're really lucky here in GM where we have a really vibrant and really generous kind of digital and tech community that wants to share, so we're facilitating that. And then also through cohort programs where we take about 15 to 20 businesses at a time that we kind of hand select and pick to be part of a cohort of one of our programs, namely Greater Connected. That's our longest running program, which is very quite strategic and kind of high level for leaders only, but then also Greater Connected is Exceed, which is a much more tactical, kind of more detail-oriented program. And for those now looking to expand globally, maybe we have the Global Scaler program, or those that are in the creative sector and are looking and seeking investment. Those we're helping on their kind of journey for investment readiness and to kind of get in front of as many investors as possible.
That's fantastic, some fantastic support there. Jeff, if I can come to you. So obviously you chose Manchester as your first hub outside of London. Why did you choose Manchester?
Well, I mean, it was a bit of a no-brainer in terms of the vibrancy of the tech scene up here. So when we did our feasibility study, looking at the need in terms of kind of employer need for digital talent at all different levels, really, and the kind of the growth of the sector, we've seen, we all know about the businesses moving to the northwest. And it's not just the Greater Manchester area, but it's wider. So we're working with businesses in Chester as well, up in Bolton. We've obviously got the kind of Cheshire kind of tech corridor there with AstraZeneca and others. So there's so much going on. It's just a really exciting place to be. So we're kind of buzzing about being able to be here. And coupled with that as well is the need for making sure that actually everyone, whatever their background, can benefit from the opportunities being created by kind of the growth in the sector. I've lived in Manchester, worked in Manchester for 15 years, and kind of across the region we've got these boroughs and so much young talent in them, but too often they're not seeing these opportunities as opportunities for them, and they're not being able to access the networks, and they're not being able to access the career advice to be able to take the right steps. We're kind of passionate about coming to the area and supporting lots of other fantastic organisations who are really trying to tackle this and say, look, this is going to be win-win. We're going to get more young people into these roles, train them up, and we want to put ourselves in that space between education and what employers need, and really figure out how to bridge that gap. And thereby, support the booming sector in the area, but also say, it's not just about the same faces every time, but actually looking at beyond that. And you mentioned about the kind of the quality diversity point there that comes in. It's at the core of our mission as a college, and we know that it's essential to the growth of not just the tech sector, but with the changing face of industry. As the delegates will be aware, the increased need for digital skills across the board. We're going to have to figure out how to solve that for the kind of young people in Greater Manchester and the people across Greater Manchester, whatever their age, to be able to benefit from those opportunities, and for the business themselves to be able to thrive.
And what advice, as I said, every single Northwest tech business I speak to is finding it hard to find the right skills. So what advice would you give employers right now? Yeah,
it is tough. I mean, what we're hearing kind of echoes what Sarah is saying as well, that there's a lot of crunch and difficulty around the kind of mid-senior levels for those advanced digital skills, and but there is a lot of talent coming through, and I think there's a couple of things we'd say, which is really think about how you can start to grow your own talent and be involved in the process and be part of the solution in this. And there's a fantastic and exciting role to play for employers of all different sizes, really, to get stuck in with training providers, with charities, with organisations who are working with schools and colleges and delivering apprenticeships like we are, to say, how can we get involved to shape your curriculum and ensure that they're getting the right training? How can we get involved to inspire the young people as they're coming at different stages in their schooling? Because we've got to start this quite young, in terms, especially in terms of getting more women through into the sector. So get involved. You can get involved in terms of growing your own talent through apprenticeships. It's just, there's such a fantastic opportunity in terms of being able to provide someone with a chance to get a degree and employ them, and really work with someone through that journey of moving into their career and training them up to be the your stars of the future, really. So work with apprenticeship providers, work with us to be part of the solution by taking on junior talent, growing your own, and really thinking about actually how we can come together as a region. So thinking about how you can work with other employers, but also with the providers to kind of collectively say, right, let's make sure we're being part of the solution. We're going out and growing our own talent. We're using the apprenticeship opportunity that's there, And we're also looking differently at how we can recruit. And really, that's a challenge, isn't it? Is how we can all actually turn our recruitment processes a bit around and turn them upside down, shake them out a bit and say, actually, what do they need to look like in order to be attracting the right, a more diverse group of people into these software developer, these data analysts, these tech consultant, these cybersecurity roles that are emerging in the sector as well. So, yeah, be part of it. We've got, for example, 5 places on our cohort for software developers, software engineers, starting with us in the autumn. So I'd say get started now. Think about how you can build your talent for the future. Yeah, you have to be a bit brave. You have to put that investment in terms of bringing on someone at an apprenticeship level. But some of the young people we work with, and the older group as well, because there's no age barriers on apprenticeships. But they're so inspiring in terms of the passion and the drive. And you'll find, amazing commitment and retention levels and success levels through a sort of 2 or 3 year apprenticeship program that will sort of set you for the future. So it's about looking to the future, being part of the solution, and getting stuck in with kind of the ecosystem in the region.
Fantastic. I love apprenticeships, so it's all music to my ears. So Lee, obviously you work for Microsoft, a huge organisation, and we were talking about at lunch how there has never been a time when every single employer is feeling their way through this time of how do we get people back to the office. So it's not just one company doing it because they've changed their way of working. The whole world is dealing with this at the moment. So what does the future of work and the workplace look like at Microsoft?
So I think we all talk about the fact that we're in this hybrid environment, and the pandemic's actually meant that everyone's gone through this change, but we haven't really lived in hybrid before because either people have been in the office if they've had to be in the office or they've been at home. So as we come out of the other side, I think it's realising that actually giving individuals the flexibility and the autonomy to make the decisions as to whether they want to work at home or whether they want to be in the office. And I think we see that hybrid will be the way in which businesses move forward. But at the same time, you have to be aware that nothing's static, so it's constantly changing. So irrespective of what you think now, I suppose the pandemics give us that agility and the ability to actually deal with change that we're going to have as individuals and as businesses moving forwards. And I think as well, the other thing that we are seeing within Microsoft is that it's not just about the places where people work and the skills that they have. It's actually about people's well-being. Like, how do you manage them as individuals? How do you make sure that they are being their best selves so that they can provide the best the best talent, the best of their abilities to the company to help you to succeed, whilst also as a company and as a manager, you're also having to be very cognizant now of the fact that there's a huge focus on people's health and well-being, and making sure that you have the ability to understand how you can help those individuals within the organisation. Technology, obviously, is going to be one of the fundamental things moving forward. We've all spent the last however long in front of devices. And I think that making sure as well that as you're bringing new talent into the organisation, that you are giving them that opportunity to learn the basic digital skills, but also as well the higher level cognitive skills, so that they still have that communication, they still know how to do teamwork, because ultimately digital skills, data, AI, etc., on their own, they're not going to help businesses be successful. They have to be combined with those high-level cognitive skills where it's around, collaboration, synthesizing information, etc., for the business. So I think the hybrid world now will focus more on the individuals, and that's how businesses will get success.
It's interesting, isn't it? I was chatting to Danny Simpson earlier when I came in, and we were saying how if everybody's remote, if it was your first job out of school or college, how do you learn? Because it is that listening and watching people and how they behave in an office environment, in a work environment, and how that is going to move forward. So obviously, as we look to people having to sort of upskill and reskill, especially if maybe they've been displaced or, the job roles have changed. So how can employers embrace like a lifelong learning culture in their organisations?
So it's funny. So within Microsoft, we have a term now, an attitude, where every single individual has gone from a know-it-all to a learn-it-all, and that's instilled by our leadership. And Microsoft's mission is to empower every individual and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. That's the mission of the organisation. But taking that internally to help to support employees, like how are we going to be successful moving forward? And it's making sure that we have the time and the investment from the business to learn. We have dedicated learning days, we have the ability to collaborate. But I think when I speak to organisations, what they find is that actually learning is just an add-on in your job. It's not something that you do as part of your job, so it becomes that additional extra thing that then kind of drops out. But being flexible and agile and having to take new things on all the time is the only way you're going to be successful, because we're in this world today. A new technology might arrive tomorrow and we're all going to have to learn. I mean, I know that within Microsoft, technology changes all of the time and you have to continuously learn and be adaptable. But I also think, like you were saying before, Jeff, around young people and that motivation, I think it's making sure that you instill that across the board, across the whole of the organisation, and building the talent internally as well. You're only going to build talent and upskill them internally if you have that culture of learning.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. If I can come to Richard now. So obviously you've got some really innovative ways of learning at Sales Geek. So how can technology make sort of upskilling and training and education of teams more accessible?
So for us, it's all about access. So the main thing is it makes it more affordable and easier to get to as well through the technology. So the fundamental issue in our space, I'm sure there's probably some people in the room that have been on the wrong end of this, sales training. So only 14% of companies train their salespeople, and product training doesn't count, right? So that's 86% of businesses don't train their salespeople. Why? Well, generally what happens is you get a group of people in a room for a day, teach them all the same stuff, and send them away again. And we believe that doesn't work, because every other way you learn through life generally is over a sustained period of time. And also, companies buy sales training, not individuals. It's never been a consumer product before. It's been a product that individuals buy, which goes back to the point about lifelong learning. How can you expect people to be lifelong learners if they're dependent on the organisation to train them and they can't take responsibility for their own training? And we live in a very developed country here where education it's a right, not a privilege anymore. But then we step into the business world, and for certain skills, like in our world in sales education has become a privilege rather than a right. It's too expensive. It's too inaccessible for individuals, but also smaller organisations. So we built our own proprietary app, which is on the App Store now, Sales Geek, and ultimately for us, that's allowing individuals and small organisations that are trying to get off the ground, that they can't afford the best sales talent. So they go and access people that aren't as educated, aren't as experienced, but at the minute they can't afford to educate them. So for us, it's getting it in people's pockets, giving access to hundreds of pieces of content that get them up and moving, and it's tailored to them because they can choose what they go and access. And it stops this churn. So many people come in and out of this profession. They end up in it by accident, and they end up out of it by design, unfortunately. And we want to keep people in our profession. Every business on the planet needs salespeople, but we seem to be unwilling to invest in their education. So we've decided to put our foot forward and make that education free for salespeople forever.
That's fantastic, absolutely brilliant. So we've got sort of 6 minutes left, so I'd like to get onto the topic of diversity and inclusion. So why is this such an important topic? Sarah, if I can come back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just want to say that I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, because it is such an important one. Not just because it's the right thing to do and it's kind of building, us thinking about this in terms of business strategy and diversity and inclusion needing to be a really firm part of that. It's building a business community that we want, and it's the right thing to do, as I said, but also because this pandemic has shown us so loud and clear that those businesses that have a diverse, I should say a diversity of thought, a diversity of age, a diversity of background, those that have teams that look like that are just a lot more resilient. They're a lot more open to, and as successful, shall I say, to expanding on an international market. They're a lot more resilient in terms of innovation, because their team looks like their client base, because everyone is now buying online and shopping online, so there isn't this big divide of the consumer of the future anymore. but also it's just the kind of environment that, again, we're talking about skills and we're talking about shortages. It's the kind of environment that job seekers are looking for at the moment. Again, they want to be part of a culture that represents their own values and their own kind of importance. So we really emphasize this, and we really talk about this with businesses, and we try and help them break it down and make it really simple in terms of how to include the goal of diversity and inclusion into their strategies and into their kind of roadmap to success.
Yeah, I mean, I do quite a lot of talking about diversity and inclusion, especially in tech companies. And, I share the fact that my mum's Chinese and her maiden name's NG, which is a very common Hong Kong Chinese surname. But sometimes when I have to go on to a security question, what's your mother's maiden name, it says must be a minimum of 3 characters. And that's fine for me because it's just a security question. But if you're trying to create an actual profile, you've alienated millions and millions of people in the world with 2-character surnames. So again, diverse tech teams, product teams, QA teams would have captured that. Finally, we've just got 4 minutes. So Jeff, what advice would you give companies? I mean, obviously you're talking to a lot of employers at the moment. What advice do you give them about diversity and inclusion?
So you have to take bold steps with it, and often it's easy to stay in your safe place around recruitment because you've got a lot of things on your plate, and there's a lot of good intentions out there, and the employers that are really tackling this are those that are able to invest those in the HR, in the recruitment practices, but also in their internal culture, kind of across the board. So there does need to be a kind of a step of investment. And finding the capacity and having the conversations with other businesses who are doing it well to move your business to that point, I think is the key change we'd encourage employers to make. There's loads of great organisations in Greater Manchester who are doing fantastic work around this area. So talk to us, talk to Ada, but talk to lots of the other providers as well who are kind of working together to try and tackle this for advice in terms of the way you're running assessment processes, the way you're wording your job descriptions, and all these things matter, and how you're advertising your roles, and also going back to the point I made before, also what proactive steps you can do to getting involved in the process earlier on in education.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's not just about diversity and having that diverse workforce, it's about the inclusion of how they feel when they're in the workplace. So obviously Microsoft is a really aspirational, inspirational organisation. So what kind of things do they do that you could share, Lee?
So it's funny, I think, when we talk about, I think I come from a privileged place in the fact that as an organisation we put diversity and inclusion right at the front and centre. It's built within our objectives as individuals, and in kind of our contract effectively with the business. But I think one of the things that Microsoft kind of does is make sure that opportunity is available for everybody. Again, we have a come as you are, do what you love. There's a huge focus on accessibility. There's 1 billion people on the planet who have a disability, and they have got phenomenal skill sets. But I think that there's a fear sometimes as to how do you bring those type of individuals into an organisation. And again, when we talk about diversity, whether that's across ages, gender, sexuality, etc., it's about what does that diversity bring. We kind of talk about diversity all the time. It's important that we have a diverse workforce. Yeah, but why? It's important because that creates that cognitive friction where somebody will turn around and they'll say, no, I disagree. You've got the same type of people in the same room. They're all going to come up with the same answers. Whereas if you've got different perspectives and thoughts, that's where new ideas come from, and that's why it's important. And again, the statistics, McKinsey report said that there's going to be an additional 3 million tech jobs in the UK by 2025. 3 million on top of all the ones that we have, the way that technology is moving. So we need to make sure that we're bringing in talent from everywhere so that we can, make the organisations grow. And for us, as Microsoft, that's front and centre. You have to be diverse, you have to be inclusive as an organisation to be successful.
Fantastic. And, and that's the thing about sort of artificial intelligence as well. If you don't have a diverse team working on the artificial intelligence, the intelligence is only as good as the people programming it, and that's where the worry is. So we've just run out of time, but I could go on speaking all afternoon to you guys. So thank you very much, Sarah, Richard, Lee, and Jeff, for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.